again, we're talking about different perspectives on different things. Give me your bottom line perspective on things from your point of view, your race, being a mixed person. I mean, I think most people look at you and say you're black, but being a mixed person, I mean, I don't know what that must be like, so yeah.
Let's just be real, like, I got the awesome experience to go to Jamaica in 2018. And I was actually warned and had prepared myself mentally and all this stuff to be mistreated by black people because I was mixed, because I was light skinned or whatever. In Jamaica, you know, there's this whole thing about bleaching and, you know, and it's very interesting because what I feel like my black brothers and sisters are saying is that, like, how can you be one way and then try to conform to another way that has oppressed us, that is forcing us to feel like we need to feel like we look this way or we act this way or whatever. And so I couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, I went to Jamaica and it was an amazing time. I was not mistreated by anybody. It was amazing. You know, over here, I've really had to think about being mixed. And the fact that my black brothers and sisters over here have, you know, constantly, I've heard, you're not that black. You know, with my white friends, a joke was being black from the waist up or black from the waist down, however insinuating that is. It is a real thing that I had to deal with. Living in Scarborough, I experienced these multicultural things. Even, like, I got to experience police chasing bad guys onto our balcony, you know, car races on the street, different things. And you know what, I in Scarborough, I lived in a co-op, and a lot of people would have thought that we were a lower income, lower class kind of family. I did live in an area where there's a high concentration of black people, and I would say growing up as a kid, in that I had this like sense, even as a little kid, that when I saw a black person, and I'm colored, my dad is black, my family is colored, if I saw this black person wearing baggy clothes or a bandana or a fitted cap or something like this, stay away. You get this apprehensive feeling, and I can't say that it came from my parents. It did not come from my family, because my family, my parents are one that broke the mold, right? Like one of the first people to mix interracially, we'll call it. And they have only taught me peace, love, reconciliation, care about other people, look at the character before anything else. And so where did this come from? It was just very interesting, being a colored person, having this perspective. To now, you know, coming out of Scarborough, moving into a predominantly white town. And this is when things turned. I mean, I really realized, hey, like, maybe I belonged in Scarborough. Maybe that's where I never really felt like I belonged in Stouffville because of, you know, of the way that I was treated. But going back to Stouffville, like, where things really took a turn for the worse, I did tell you, you know, had this little incident of this kid calling me chocolate poo boy. All throughout school, you know, I was picked on because of the color of my skin. People calling me, you know, they would just say it out. You know, there's this game where you would start as quietly as possible and get as loud as possible with certain words that you probably shouldn't say, or just inappropriate to, you know, to yell out. Nigger was one of these things, and they, you know, louder and louder and louder. It was a regular thing. Becoming a little bit older, getting up to grade 7, grade 8, you know, by this time I had one other black friend now in the school, and you know, these white kids, they're going off to high school next year or whatever, and they felt, I don't know, because I'm black, like they have to show how macho they are before they leave or whatever, but like they would literally push me around and do different things to try to intimidate me and make me feel, made sure that I knew that I was not welcome. So let's leave school. So I'm out walking on the street, and by this time I'm skateboarding, and you know, I wore baggier clothes, and I had dreadlocks. I would wear, you know, a fitted hat and things like that. All the time, police would stop me and say, like, are you from around here? Or you're not from around here. Sorry guys, there's mosquitoes coming out. But so, you know, are you from around here, and what are you doing here? And just surprised that I'm in this neighborhood. Let me tell you, I lived in a more affluent white neighborhood. So there was the town, but there was a part of the town that, you know, if you drove through the street, you'd be like, oh, what did that guy do for his job or whatever, right? Like, these were nice homes. And so I'm walking, you know, in this area, and, you know, cop stops me and searches me, does the whole thing. He was convinced that I was not, you know, I did not live there. Meanwhile, I lived probably 300 meters up the street. When I was 16, her dad did not approve of us dating. We could be friends, but because of the color of my skin, and he was white, he said that we could not mix. Races should not mix. He even had a black friend. I only seen the one, but he had a black friend, and he even disagreed. Like, he said, no, like, people should be sticking to their own kind.
Well,
right?
you came to the wrong country.
Like, for 3.5 years, we dated, and I had to hide this relationship because of the color of my skin. Can you believe it? In Ontario. In Markham. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, hello, that was only, what, 6 years ago or whatever it was? Like, it's not that long ago.
No.
And people still have this mentality. Driving up the main street, I had just dropped off the same girl I was dating or whatever, and I see this cop pull in behind me, pulls up close, pulls back, pulls beside me. He's doing he's looking in the window and everything. I get halfway down Main Street in there in Stouffville, turns on his cherries, and pulls me over. And by this time, I'd seen enough TV. I'd seen in the States or whatever. I knew this cop was a white individual. Right away, hands on the dashboard, you know, hands on the steering wheel, whatever I could to make myself seem like I'm not a threat. And all I'm in is pajama pants and a fitted red hat. And, you know, I'm there for about 25 minutes, maybe even half an hour. I'm sitting there freaking out, and all of a sudden, you know, like 6 or 7 more cop cruisers come. I'm not kidding you. They block off the main street. They, you know, make a little area beside me because they're going to approach the vehicle or whatever they do, and ask me to get out of the vehicle, you know, hands up and the whole thing, asked me if I had weapons, any of that. Turns out that they had assumed that I had stolen the vehicle I was driving because it was a nicer one. The area that we're in, I'm this black kid. They told me right to my face that I was this black kid wearing a fitted cap. Right? That was pretty intense. And I thought it couldn't get worse, but it did. Walking home one day, and by now, like, I'm used to this. Like, people would come up and try to fight me, initiate me into high school, just because of the color of my skin, or how I dressed, or I don't know what it was, other than the color of my skin, really. So by this time, I'm used to altercations. So earlier this day, you know, this white truck had gone by, and I knew this white individual driving this truck as well. And he, you know, I thought we were okay. We weren't friends, but we were, you know, acquaintances. We partied together, and, you know, everything was okay. There was no reason to think that, you know, there was any racial anything. So we drive by in this white truck. He's playing a song by Dr. Dre, and I put my hands up and like, yeah, it's a good song. I really enjoyed it. Just giving him like a big up, because in Jamaica, I don't know, we say big up, or commending him because of his musical choice, and he had a sound system and it sounded great, right? I'm carrying my skateboard, and rest of the day goes by. I skateboarded successfully with my white friends, and no issues there. Walking home, I see this white truck. So imagine this, we're in the suburbs. There's intersection, but there's no street lights or anything. This truck comes screeching to a stop in the middle of this intersection, and 15, 20 white guys come out of the back of the truck and circle us. And they're saying taunts and different things, trying to grab my skateboard, trying to intimidate us, and all these things. At the end of, their overwhelming message was, I was not welcome. They, saying ridiculous things like gang signs and different things, and I barely knew what a gang was at that age. I
How old were you?
probably like 15, 16 or something like that. I had not, honestly, anybody in the community, study me, look at I've never been in trouble with the police. It was beyond my way of thinking. And the overwhelming message though was I was not welcome here. They did not want my kind here, and that they wanted to hurt me. They wanted to take my belongings, and I don't know what rose up within me, but like I said, by this time I was not shivering in I was used to this. This was a regular part of my daily life. People coming up to me and these racial tensions or different things happening. And I just looked at the aggressor right in the face, and I was just so disappointed. And the truth is, in the back of my head, I said a little prayer to God. I was just I don't know how you're going to get me out of this situation. Obviously, I'm going to get hurt because there's so many people. But I looked at the aggressor and I just said, look, this is what's going to happen. I was with a friend, a white friend, by the way, put my arm around my buddy's shoulder, and I said, look, this is what's going to happen. We're going to walk right through you. We're going to go home, and that is it. And that's what happened, actually. I'm very...
Didn't try to stop you? Or
Nope.
any more taunts?
They taunted me the whole way I was walking, but what that taught me was that maybe even though people are being racist in a group, they might not actually feel the same way. Is it possible that they're just following, they just want to fit in too? They want to feel part of something. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I never, even to this day, I'm very disappointed. If you're watching this message somehow, I'm very disappointed that this had to happen. But at the same time, I understand feeling the need to be included and to feel like you belong. And my encouragement to you would just be grow some sense, boy. Make some friends with people that are different than you, and embrace these differences, celebrate these differences, and try to understand. Listen to understand, not just to listen. Not to be okay, yeah, well, we had this anti-racism seminar and now I'm not a racist anymore. That's not how it works.
It's so funny listening to that, getting the whole other perspective of how you grew up. And it really makes me wonder how I would have turned out if I grew up in Stouffville with all those white guys being like them. I probably would have been the same as them. You follow. Most of us are followers until we learn enough to become leaders. And especially at that age. But I mean, when I was 20, I went and I was working in shipping and receiving in a hotel. Now in a hotel, most of the people that work there are immigrants from all over the place. But in shipping and receiving, they were all Jamaican. I was the only white guy. So I had the actual opposite experience, but these people were very warm and welcoming, and they were teaching me the lingo, and they got a kick out of me. They were going no, you got to say it like this, man.
Me Bonia, man.
Yeah. And even they were telling me all these words that they say, what they really mean, and everything else. And it was just it was such, I forgot about it until you brought this up, but here I am, not much older than you, working with all these Jamaican guys and getting this enriching. They were great. No, they were working. They were all nobody was in gangs. Nobody was doing it. And there was none of the stereotype. It was all, and the thing is, they were all like, oh, do you like, and the minute you like their food, everybody's bringing you food and going like, oh, you got to try this. Oh,
Yeah.
my wife makes it better than his, and try this and try that and try this. And it was just like, I got the full on Jamaican experience for about 2 years there, but it was like, it was great. I remember, I think even when I got into work, my accent changed. I was talking like this. So it was just kind of like being immersed in this, and it was, but you see, with you having all this negative experience, for me it was just a really positive experience. Absolutely positive. I look back and I go like, yeah, you know, that was a great time in my life. I learned a lot. I got to try a lot of new things, you know, being sort of mini immersed with this culture, because these guys interacted with each other. They all knew the towns they came from back in Jamaica. They all came from Jamaica. They weren't born here. They were all immigrants. So it was actually the opposite, that experience that you had, I had, and that again was in Rexdale.
Very interesting. I want to wrap things up in an interesting way. So you as a white person, let's talk to, there's lots of people we could be talking to, but let's talk to the person where we live. Let's talk to the person who lives in Etobicoke. What could this person be doing to change things, to move things forward, understanding that it's not enough to just say, I don't do that, I'm not a racist, and leave it there? What can people actively be doing now to change things?
I think conversation, like, I mean, I've known you for 10 years now, and like a lot of this stuff you're saying to me is news to me. Like, I figured, oh, you know, you grew up in Stouffville, it was a pretty quaint little place, and I know you talked before, but I had no idea how intense some of these experiences were for you. So I think talking about it sort of gives a perspective, and the funny thing is, while you're talking about this, it brings up things from my passings I should have known better to do, but also some of the good experience as well, and you know, to draw from that and to open up. You know, it's just like you can cut yourself off and you're imprisoning yourself. But when you open yourself up to these places and these people and their cultures and everything else, it's so rewarding and can be so enriching. I think there's more to it than we realize, and it's very easy to say, oh, I have a black friend, so I'm not racist, but you can be very racist. Even without knowing it, you can be blatantly racist, or you can just have no idea.
As I was saying, it didn't matter that my white friends, close white friends, were friends with me as a black person. That wasn't enough, right? Without me being there, they would be racist by themselves. And
one thing I really hate to say when people say, well, are you racist? It's just kind of like, to be honest, I'd have to say, yes. Some people are going to find me racist. I'm not trying to be, but I'm sure some things I do are going to offend some people, and people will consider them racist. And I have to, be open to that fact and be willing to listen and understand their perspective, because I might not see it. And they have to be willing to kind of point that out to me as well. You know, I'm looking at people now, and I'm looking at, you know, some of the people I know who are mixed race and growing up, and they're marrying other mixed races and growing up, and I'm going like, some of these people, how can you be racist when you don't even know what race you are? There's such a blending that's occurring and will continue to occur. But I think we all have to realize that there is racism in us, and how we can learn from it and try to improve ourselves. If we try to learn from the journey, we can learn a lot. If we don't focus on the actual journey, but on the destination, I don't think we're going to get there.
I would agree with you on that point. I mean, we often forget we focus on point A and B, but we don't think about, you know, life it's all about the process of between A and B. Like, Ask any entrepreneur, ask any sports person. It's all about this process to getting to the next milestone. And what I would say for, people that live in Etobicoke is, what's the next milestone? Really? That's the question, is what is the next milestone? And in my mind, that's what it is. In order to solve the racism problem, we should not be focused on the organization, but the organism, the people themselves. What is happening in your character, and who have you been placed around? And at the end of the day, I think the resounding message, and what I've been getting from you too, the fact is this: there really is only one race, the human race, and we are human. You've heard a discussion of very different colored people, very different experiences, and the question is, what's your experience? What's been yours? I want to hear. Let me know. Send me a message, comment. I really, really want to connect with you and learn what your experience has been like growing up in Etobicoke, and what your thoughts are of how we can tackle this racism issue.